Do you find yourself getting frustrated with like all the little stuff that you have in your bigger bag that you can't seem to keep track of? Have I got the project for you? Today I'll be teaching you how to make a mini pouch. These pouches are perfect for all of your little belongings. Use them as a coin purse, to store your bobby pins, you name it. They're perfect. This is a really easy project for any skill level of sewing. If you haven't already done so, I highly recommend visiting my Etsy shop where you'll find a sewing kit for pretty much everything that you need to complete this project. You will need some other basic supplies, but if you've already done a couple of sewing projects previously, you probably have those on hand. I'll put the link to my Etsy shop down in the description so you can just go there and purchase it, and that way you can go ahead and skip a trip to the fabric store. I have a couple of different patterns available, something for everyone, I think, but if you don't like any of those patterns, feel free to go ahead and use your own fabric. I'll have the list of supplies down in the description, that way if you don't purchase the kit, you can still follow along and make the project. For this project, you'll need a sewing machine. You'll need some sewing pins or some sewing clips. For this project, I think the clips work a little bit better. Chalk will come in handy if you're working on your own fabric. A pair of scissors, any scissors will do, but I definitely recommend sharp fabric scissors if you're using your own fabric. A seam ripper, an iron, and some thread. It's usually recommended to match your thread to your fabric, but that's a personal choice. A sewing kit. Each kit comes with the material that you'll need for the project. It'll come with 2 pieces of fusible fleece, 2 pieces of lining, and 2 pieces of the main fabric, and a zipper. Everything except the zipper is cut to size. When you have all your supplies ready, we can go ahead and get started. The first thing you'll want to do after getting your supplies either cut or out of the pack is to set one panel of each of the fabrics to the side. What you're left with is one panel of each of the fabrics. You'll have your main panel, your lining panel, and your interface panel. The interface is used to give the bag a little bit of stability. If you have any sort of wrinkles in your fabric, this is where the iron will come in handy. You'll just want to make sure you iron those down so everything is nice and flat. Word of caution here though, don't iron the fusible fleece because you'll have a sticky mess. The fusible fleece has heat activated glue on one side which will make it stick to your iron. With your fabric all nice and ironed, you'll want to go ahead and grab your main panel right side down and place it together with your zipper. Grab your fusible fleece. There are 2 sides, a bubbly side and a really soft side. You'll go ahead and put the bubbly side against the wrong side of the main panel. Place your lining down and place all 3 of your pieces on top of the lining panel. The lining panel doesn't have a front or a back. Using the kit, if you're using something else, it may have a front or a back. You'll want to go ahead and line everything up so it's nice and even. When it's all together, this is what it should look like. You should have your fusible fleece, your main panel facing down, your zipper facing up, and then your lining panel at the bottom. When you've ensured that everything is in the right orientation, you'll go ahead and take your sewing clips or your sewing pins and clip everything together. You can use as many clips as you'd like, but I typically use about 3. I also find that clips are a lot easier than pins for this project, but you can use whatever you have. Once everything's clipped together, you'll sew at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you want to try and determine what the 1/4 inch seam allowance is, all machines are different, but for mine, it's lining up the fabric with the presser foot edge. You'll notice that my presser foot is on top of the zipper, and that'll make it a little bit difficult to sew, but I don't have a zipper foot, so this is what we do for mine. If you also don't have a zipper foot, you'll just have to make sure that you help the fabric along as the machine is sewing. Notice how I'm keeping the zipper underneath the presser foot by putting slight pressure towards the presser foot. The zipper will have a tendency to come out towards your left hand as you're sewing. You want to go ahead and remove the clips as you sew and get to the edge and do a back stitch. Where your back stitch lever is on your machine may differ from mine, but mine is right above the needle on the face of the machine. When you pull out your piece, you'll notice a nice straight line from where your zipper attached to all your fabric pieces. Put your project down in the same orientation that you sewed it in and pull out the lining back. Flip up your fusible fleece and your main panel, and you'll want to go ahead and clip the lining to the fusible fleece and the main panel. This will keep everything out of the way for when you go ahead and sew the other side the same exact way that you just did. Grab the 3 panels that you set aside earlier, and you'll go ahead and place them in the same exact orientation that you did previously. Take your main fabric panel and place it right side down. Next, you'll take your interfacing and you'll go ahead and place the bubbly side on top of the wrong side of your main panel. Grab both panels and place them on top of the right side of the zipper or the top side of the zipper. Try to line everything up so that it's even with the side that has already been sewn. Grab your lining panel and place it down. Grab the zipper, the main fabric, and the interfacing, and you'll go ahead and place that right on top. Once everything's been placed nice and even, you'll go ahead and clip everything together and sew at another 1/4 inch seam allowance. Once that you've attached all the fabric panels to the zipper, you can go ahead and remove the clips that you placed previously to keep those panels out of the way. You won't need those for now. Go ahead and take your project and lay it down with 3 panels to the left and 3 panels to the right of the zipper. We're going to go ahead and do a top stitch on each side of the zipper. This will work to keep your panels together, but it'll also make the bag look nice and have a finished look. You'll want to go ahead and pull your lining to where it meets the interface and the main panel, so it's nice and even. Go ahead and clip those together. A zipper foot will definitely come in handy for this step, but if you don't have one, you'll want to go ahead and align your zipper to the edge of your presser foot. For this step, I do usually go ahead and mess with the settings for the width. I usually go ahead and set it to 5 so that you have a nice straight stitch closer to the edge of the fabric versus further down the middle of the fabric. My width setting is at the top of my machine, so I go ahead and move that dial all the way to 5, and you'll see how the needle will move based on how much I move that, and it moves closer to the left. And what that does is it just puts the stitch closer to your zipper, which I like the look of. If you didn't want it to be so close to the zipper, you could definitely keep it at your 0, and that'll be just fine. Go ahead and do your top stitch, remembering to do your reverse stitch both at the beginning and at the end. And you'll go ahead and repeat this on both sides of the zipper. Go ahead and cut any loose threads that your bag has. You can do this at the end, but I always like to do it as I go through. You'll want to go ahead and lay your bag down with both of the lining panels together and both of the main and interfacing panels together. We're going to go ahead and sew all the sides except for one of the lining sides, which is going to remain open so we can go ahead and flip our bag inside out. Go ahead and clip your lining panels together. And this next part is probably the trickiest. You'll want to go ahead and pinch your zipper so that it's pressed in between your main fabric panels. This will make it so when you actually sew up the bag and flip it inside out, or rather right side out, it has a nice look to it. And so you can see here how I'm pretty much just pushing the inside of the zipper towards the main fabric panel with my finger, and then I go ahead and clip that so it stays in place. If you haven't already done so, you'll want to make sure that your zipper is in between both of the main fabric panels. That way when you sew it shut, you have a way to open your bag up again. I usually try and open it all the way. That way I can flip my bag outside in, or right side out rather, really easily. Otherwise it gets a little tough to get in there with your finger and open the zipper up. Go ahead and clip the zipper on the other side as well, making sure that everything is nice and even. You want to go ahead and get started on sewing one of the shorter sides of the lining all the way across the main fabric panel and then through to the other short side of the lining panel. We're not doing the longer side of the lining panel because that's how you'll flip your bag. When you're doing the lining, if you have any trouble with the machine wanting to suck up your lining fabric, you'll want to go ahead and sandwich the 2 pieces between a piece of wax paper, and that'll prevent it from getting sucked up in the machine. Or if you're having trouble starting and doing your back stitch, that's another way to prevent the machine from sucking it up. Just go ahead and line it with a couple of pieces of wax paper and feed it through the machine. The machine is going to poke holes through your wax paper, and it'll make it so you have nice clean lines and nothing gets sucked into the machine, because that's always a hassle to try and fix. You'll want to take your time going over the zipper. I usually try and do that with the hand wheel just so that my needle doesn't break. This is what your pouch should look like when you've sewn all the sides except for the one. You'll want to go ahead and pull your pouch through that opening after you cut your loose threads and your zipper. For cutting your zipper, I highly recommend using scissors other than your dedicated fabric scissors because this will dull your fabric scissors quite a bit. You'll also want to trim up any excess fabric as well as interfacing just to make the bag a little bit less bulky when you go ahead and flip it right side out. To flip the bag right side out, you'll want to go ahead and open up the hole in your lining and pull it through the zipper. If you have bigger hands and you're finding it hard to flip your bag right side out, you can always use a chopstick, a spoon, a fork, just anything pokey to go ahead and push those insides all the way out. Being careful not to push too hard and rip your seams if you're using something sharp like scissors. Leave your lining pulled out because we'll need to go ahead and close up that hole to finish up the bag. Take both lining panels and fold them inward using your fingers. You'll want to go ahead and fold them inward about 1/4 inch or less if you can manage it. And once they seem pretty even, you'll want to go ahead and clip those together. Once you're all clipped up, you'll go ahead and take that to the sewing machine to finish off the bag. For this step, I usually go ahead and try and get the needle to the edge of the fabric or as close. That way it's a nice edge stitch. If you're having trouble with the machine sucking up your fabric, you'll want to go ahead and squeeze both of the lining pieces between a piece of wax paper. That'll help your machine not suck it up. You can also try and play with your machine settings. I'm not super experienced with my machine setting. This is the way that I found works best for me. Next, you'll want to go ahead and clean up any remaining tails. And you're done with your pouch. You'll want to go ahead and stuff your lining back in your pouch and see how it works. If you liked, enjoyed, or learned something from this video, click that like button and subscribe to the channel for more tutorials like this one. If you followed along and made your own pouch, we would love to see it. Make sure you tag @SiestaDoodler on Instagram. Thanks for watching.